Welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast, the podcast that's just about het up after Saturday's match. This week on Heart and Hand, 3 in a row! So welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name's David Edgar, I'm your host, and I'm joined this week by a man of culture, and he's just proved that by returning from a week in beautiful Vienna. Yes, it's Mr. Stephen Smith.
Hello David, how are you?
I'm good. You were out seeing our correspondent. Long-term listeners will remember Fraser Martin Maguire, and you were out visiting him.
I went with Fraser and Diane, who are in Bratislava, and Fraser was there with the rest of us when we played Art Media a few years back. And obviously liked it so much that he decided to move there. So we were over there having a cultural weekend, including some sledging down the hill, and then over to Vienna to freeze my absolute bollocks off.
Well, I'd have sympathy if it wasn't for the fact that I was at Ibrox on Saturday to watch Rangers get the monkey off its back, Stephen, and with a victory against Ross County. It wasn't the most inspirational of displays. Rangers started very, very sluggishly. It was a very, very cold day. I'm not making excuses for the players, but it possibly wasn't. Maybe the atmosphere was frigid, shall we say. Rangers started badly, sluggishly, slowly, were punished by giving away a dreadful goal from our point of view, which we'll discuss in a moment. Huffed and puffed the rest of the half and actually played really badly. It was one of those days nothing was going right. Players were misplacing passes left, right and centre. They were moaning at each other for not making runs, not tracking players. Left to a fairly loud chorus of boos, I've got to say. On this, back on in the second half, no Carlos Pena. He was replaced by Alfredo Morelos, and it was Alfredo Morelos who broke his goal duck and got us back. Got him back scoring and got us back into the game with a lovely goal after a well-worked move and a good cross from Daniel Candeas. And then it kind of looked... I felt we had a good 10 minutes after we scored, and then after it sort of reverted back to what it had been. Not quite as bad in the first half, but I was starting to wonder if the players either had accepted a draw or didn't have the energy for one last big push. When we won a free kick out in the right, it was played in, and after the keeper made a save from the initial header, Danny Wilson popped up to knock in the rebound. And although there were a couple of scary moments, including a big stramash, as Arthur Montford would say at the end, we held on and we got the victory. So Stephen, excellent victory in terms of the context of the season, but a tough watch, would you say?
Yeah, I'd say exactly that, David. Really painful at times to watch. We've all been at Ibrox watching games like that, you know, those November, December, January games that are just kind of routine, and you've got an opposition that were fired up. And yeah, I think they did. I think Ross County gave a decent account of themselves. I agree with you. I thought the goal was really soft. I think Wilson was really poor and half-hearted, and the goalkeeper was asleep as well. I think there were a number of players, Tavernier and Jack, I think that's the least impact I've seen either of them have in a game so far this season. But as you say, there were some positives there. I thought, again, Candeas, who as you know is a favourite of mine, I think the fact that he never hid, he was always looking for the ball and he contributed right throughout the game. And when things weren't coming off for him, he tried again and he made it work. Great to see Morelos break his duck as well, and getting the result, as you say, that the 3-game monkeys off our back, and that's really important in the context of the season. And we're second in that league. Would you believe it? That team is second in the league.
Yeah, we'll come to that, because we should be so far out of this, and we're not. And there is a bit you now begins to think, right, hang on a minute here. If we can even improve to average, then we've got a real shot at this. But to go into what some of your points there, first thing you mentioned Daniel Candeas, and I do think that his performance was, I think, typical of his seasons, that he did some things really badly, let's be honest, and then some of his touches, especially in the second half, were sublime. Some of his wee layoffs and flicks and whatnot. But I would agree with you that he did keep going and he didn't hide, and he didn't which is not a trait I think he has, but I think wingers traditionally, we may feel, are the type that will go in and out of a game. And someone I do think, Stephen, that I have criticised for hiding And he absolutely didn't, and he continued, I thought, a good run of form the other day was Josh Windass, who, although not everything went his way, he tried to make things happen constantly. He went looking for the ball constantly. If something didn't go right, he didn't complain or go into his shell. And that is a Josh Windass I can get on board with, because I don't expect him to play 8 or 9 out of 10 every week. I don't expect that. What I expect is, if he's not having a great game, to still be an option, be it through his movement or be it through his availability to take a pass or whatever. And that was the Josh Windass we got on Saturday, where he never hid. He was always available for a teammate. He was constantly looking to move and make things happen when a lot of the team were static the rest of the time, which maybe was why it stood out so much sitting in Ibrox. But I just thought that the last 3 games we've seen, and I don't want to get carried away because, you know, we've all seen flashes from Josh before, but this is the longest flash that we've seen from him so far. And that's the Josh Windass I want to see, that even if he's not at his best, he's still capable of coming up with something, or at least looks like he's going to be, as opposed to, it's not gone our way, Josh Windass is hiding on the left wing somewhere.
I'd agree with that. I think I have to remember, David, that he's only 24, and although, you know, he's that's
is
makes
that
him
young?
an adult.
Is that young in football, Stephen? 24.
He's a young, you know, he's a young 24. Clearly, you know, he doesn't look like he's a. And I do agree. I think he's a confidence player. You can tell a confidence footballer. It's a huge amount of that game is played in your head. And if you think you're doing well and you've got self-belief, you're a world beater. And if you're not doing that, then you don't want the ball and you want to just be a passenger. And I think to Windass's credit, David, he did make a decent contribution in a pretty insipid game on Saturday. I thought Holt did the same. You know, he was decent, but he kept working. And other than the goal, I think Danny Wilson made a decent contribution as well. So
I'd need to disagree with you there, mate. I thought Danny Wilson had a horror showing, including the goal. But right, in the first half, I thought some of his passing was atrocious.
We'll agree that I'm right.
No, I've watched it back, which is why I'm stating with confidence here. That at the game, I mean, he went in. It was a really, really frilly tackle to try and win the ball. But then John had sold himself on the halfway line with a really bad decision to go in at the goal. I think he maybe been a wee bit harsh on Wes. I thought it was one of those balls that was into the area that you couldn't really do much about. But no, I just thought Wilson and there was he looked panicky. He didn't look at all like the player he looked the last few weeks. I thought Alves was awful and the worst I've seen him. And the two of them were so slow with all, and they had obviously a lot of the ball because Ross County quite rightly were going to sit back and say your centre halves can have it, we don't care. And the movement from the two of them, whether or not there was fitness issues, because obviously there have been with Bruno lately, and Danny Wilson had gone off the previous week, so maybe there was, but they seem to be just that half a step off everything. I thought in the game, the man of the match for me, and it wasn't even close, and he only played 70 minutes before going off, and hopefully not with a serious injury, was Ross McCrory, who I thought again was everything that the rest of them weren't, which was authoritative, which was determined, which was winning their own battles. And to me, he was the leader of the team, and I don't care about age or anything. That's how he played the game.
No, it's a high compliment, David. He looks, I think the best thing I can say about him is that he looks like he's an accomplished, established first-team Rangers player already.
Yes.
And okay, he's only had half a dozen games, and some, and of course he's a number at centre-half, and now at the kind of foot of a midfield, in a kind of more advanced position, playing the role that Ryan Jack started out playing the season. And I did think, by the way, that we missed Jack.
Yeah, we did. Holt definitely missed him.
On Saturday,
Yeah,
Holt was industrious, but the two of them together have been very effective.
Agreed.
And I think, let's put it this way, of course, hopefully we're going to talk about the ridiculous situation, but the fact that he's been banned for 3 games, because effectively that the refereeing of this individual player this season by the Scottish referees in general. Not just by Beaton and Collin, but actually by all of the referees who dealt with him. I think it's been absolutely disgraceful.
Well, let's talk about it. People have heard my opinions on it. I didn't think it was a red, therefore I don't think it's a ban, and I do think he's been refereed to a different standard to other people. But as we pointed out in the show, we do try to be balanced on here. Last week, for example, Andy, he said he felt it was a red. Cammy, who's a qualified ref, he said he didn't think it was a red, but he could see why it was given, and also why on appeal people would give it. And a lot of ex-pros, and not just the mental arsehole ones, a lot of ex-pros, they said, nah, that's a bit, with not an axe to grind against us, said that's a bit naughty, that's a red. So I still personally don't believe it was a red. I still think that the case you can argue, but people have heard my views. Let's hear yours.
Well, I didn't think at the time it was a red card. I was actually baffled as to why the referee was going for a card at all. Never mind the red card. I think the opposition player has bottled the challenge, and that's made it look worse, because as you and I know, one of the first things you're taught amateur football is don't go in half-heartedly. That's when you get hurt. Commit yourself to a challenge, but I'm not saying breach in with studs up and try and break somebody's leg, but you have to go in as if you want to win the ball and commit to it. And the better players do that, and the ones who've got no bottle don't, and Ryan Jack went in to win that ball, and what looked like a 50-50, and May bottled out of it, and it made it a kind of 80-20 Jack's favour, and then has just stood there obviously with a follow through. But he's played the ball, David, first of all, and then gone through, and when you see it in real time, it doesn't look like a red, and then when you see it in slow motion, it looks worse, but actually everything does. And going back to it, I think the dubious nature of it meant that there was absolutely no chance that the SFA were going to have to rescind 3 red cards given to the same player before the Christmas decorations are up. It was absolutely never going to happen in a million years, and we knew that we're going to lose him. And I think the only upside of that is that we'll have him back when we play the second biggest club in Glasgow on the 30th of December.
I don't know when we're playing Thistle. Bonus joke for everybody. But that's my take on it, and I think that it'd have been interesting. I mean, obviously you'll never know, but I do wonder if it had been Jason Holt, if he'd have got off with it on appeal, because I think you were right. I think any dubiety at all, there was no way, just for appearance's sake, that he wasn't getting done with it. But no, I'd agree with that. But right, moving back, where you were talking there about young Ross McCrory.
Aye. Well, an accomplished player and a future Rangers captain, if ever I've seen one, and that's probably the kiss of death for him, saying that about him. But he looks, if he could play well at centre half, we'll get decent cover there. The boy Bates, I think, is a decent player, and it's good to see him featuring, in the squad again the last few weeks. McCrory's a prospect going forward. Barjonas as well, he looked, or however you pronounce it, he looked a decent player when he came on as well. So the Auchenhowie investment is appears to be starting to pay dividends. My only regret, of course, is that we didn't use that as we should have done when we were working our way back up, from the bottom division and blooding new players, and a decent managing and coaching structure would have done that. But that's me wishing fairies it still existed, because it didn't happen. So yeah.
Hold on. Wishing fairies still existed.
Yes, they used to exist, didn't you know that?
All right, okay, sorry, no, that was a go. I think for a podcast featuring Scott and Mark, but in a completely different
homophobia,
exactly, in a way that we certainly would not endorse, and that we won't sort of draw the connection there between those two jokes, but yeah, no, and those were the plus sides. Alfredo coming on, because he misses a really good chance at 0-0, and I must admit that we're all kind of thinking, oh God, I wish that had gone in for him. As much as we wanted the goal, it was just. But then a really good move, started by Kenny Miller, so I'm gonna mention that because we're gonna come to him in a minute. And good ball in by Daniel Candeias, didn't just put it across, looked up, spotted him, good ball, didn't need to break stride, and he's put it away perfectly with all the confidence, and that's right in front of me, that corner where he ran off to celebrate. And Stephen, that goal meant more than just we're back in this individual match. That goal meant a lot, because this is a guy who's been used to scoring for almost a calendar year a goal a game for us and for Helsinki, and I think this run baffled him more than anything else. I just don't think he could quite understand why he wasn't scoring. And when that went in, I just thought, right, that's him. He's had his, and I really do believe now that we've got back our wee Morelos, and wait and see him. Wait till he goes from here.
Agreed, Davey. He's a genuine threat, and actually, I guess we're going to talk about Kenny Miller in the free role he appears to have either been given or assigned for himself, where he thinks he can run about anywhere, contribute not very much at all, and actually not hold a position or challenge a defence. I think that's really worrying, because I believe that Morelos is a better player with an orthodox partner up with him, and I think Rangers should almost always be playing two up front, regardless of how we're kind of formally configured with it, whatever formation we normally line up there. We shouldn't just be leaving one person up front. We shouldn't leave Morelos up front. We should play either Herrera or Miller with him as an orthodox partner, and I think he will benefit from that because he's got the pace and the aggression, and as you say, it's great for him to be able to take the coat off and say, right, I've done it now, and let's get back to business, because he looked like a real asset. I wouldn't even like to guess, if he carries on and plays the way he did in the second half of the season, how much he would be worth in Dembele dollars. But he's a very good player.
I think the key thing with him is, even if he's not scoring, he's primarily a goal scorer, as we know, but even if he's not scoring, he's doing something. Even on Saturday, before he got his goal, you could see the difference he made, and he was contributing. I agree and I disagree with you. I do like the two up front, but the one of them at the moment that for me is an absolute is Windass, because I like this Josh Windass up front role, because defenders don't know where he's going to go, and they hate that. And that, I think, is... And then when you've got someone in with the industry of Alfredo Morelos and the physicality, someone who goes, I'll battle you, centre half, if you want to make it into that, that's great. The other centre half doesn't really know what to do with Josh Windass. You can see that, and it lets Alfie bounce off either centre half, and they just don't quite know who to pick up. And I think that although he didn't have a great game on Saturday, Carlos Pena, who comes in for a lot of abuse for the fans, I think that he adds to that as well, because he's effectively a striker that's playing deep. And you saw against Aberdeen that they didn't know what to do when they had that kind of Roman front line, and Miller was a part of that as well at the weekend. So I'd like to see Morelos and Windass, to be honest, with Pena still at the tip of the diamond. Now, Pena and Miller are two guys I think we do need to discuss. Pena had another one of those. Now, the thing about Carlos Pena is, he is outside the box absolutely and totally fucking useless, right? He doesn't look like a footballer when he's got the ball outside the box. However, inside the box he comes alive. We know this. We've seen this. There's evidence for this. There's goals and assists to prove it. But more importantly, when you're at the game, you see the work he does outside the box. He's not lazy. His style indicates that, because he'll take the ball and look as though he's never met a football before, and bounces off his shin and goes 6 yards, or he goes to try a 3-yard pass. But he's constantly moving. He's constantly dragging defenders into places they don't want to go. He's creating space, and he does have the ability to get into the box. Now, he was horrendous in the first half on Saturday. They all were. We didn't, except, McCrory and Windass, I'd say. But the rest of them, even the guys like Holt and Candace who came onto a game, they did not have a good first half. So I think that he was an easy pick. And look, we all knew at half time it was either him or Miller that had to go off, and it wasn't going to be Miller. We knew that was a fact. But I think people are being very quick to judge, because I think had he stayed on, and I'd like to see him play on Wednesday night, which we'll come to in the Hibs preview. But I do agree. I think that he will always, because he's, as I say, got that kind of lazy language style, has the ability to cock up very simple things, that he's an obvious target for people to say he's shite, he's rubbish. But you don't see what he brings to the team in terms of when we don't have the ball or when he doesn't have the ball. Kenny Miller, I actually felt a little bit sorry for at the weekend, and I'll tell you why. Because Kenny on Saturday was like the enthusiastic but talentless kid that you used to play with in the playground games at primary school. The guy who always arrived a few seconds after the ball had been belted to another part of the playground, and he never gave up. He reminded me a little bit of my puppy dog, that you can throw the ball all around the garden and she'll run after it constantly with no idea where it's landed or where it's gone, and it doesn't stop her chasing it. That's what he was like on Saturday. You couldn't fault him for effort. You absolutely could not fault him for effort. But Alex, on our debate last week on the Heart and Hand subscription channel about whether Kenny Miller was a legend or not, Alex, who was arguing that he was, but he said no matter what you think of his background, and it's not helped by the fact that this season is clearly a season too far. And I wonder if that is the case, over and above whether you like Kenny Miller, whether you don't, whether you believe he's a legend, whether you don't, whether or not you can go over the fact he played for Celtic or you can't. If you're just judging Kenny Miller, the professional footballer playing in Rangers' team this season, he is not in there on merit. You cannot say that, because apart from an excellent performance at Murrayfield, he has been below acceptable, below average every other match this season, I think. And even in matches where he's done okay, actually that's unfair, because there have been matches he's been acceptable, so I'm being overly harsh there. But even in the matches he's done okay, the Aberdeen matches, it was more based with, again, working hard and contributing in that way than bringing any quality to the match. And in a game like Saturday, where it wasn't so much about work rate as needing that bit of quality from your senior top guys, because we were playing a team that packed defences, that he really struggled badly, because there's no space for him to run into, and although he'll run about gladly all day, he gets frustrated by that up front, ends up careering back, as you say, into midfield, careering back further, and suddenly he's not a problem for the defence. We've talked about the way that Pena and Windass especially could be a problem because defenders don't know where they're going to be. He's the opposite of that, in that he's not a problem for defenders, because although they don't know where he's going to be, they know he's not going to be in an area that's going to hurt them. They know he's going to be 40 yards further up the park, and that is the problem. And whether it's a case of just taking him aside and saying you're trying too hard, or whether it's a case of saying, look, Kenny, you can't contribute for 90 minutes the way you used to. You just, the body's willing, but the quality's gone from the legs a little bit. And maybe you can make more of an impact as a sub when the other players are tired a wee bit, they're not as mentally sharp as they are at the start of a game, and you come on then, and your experience becomes a factor that we can use. I don't know, but at the moment he appears to be undroppable. And don't believe these Kenny Miller runs the dressing room and all the rest of it. He doesn't, right? Kenny Miller's very popular and influential in the dressing room, and anybody looking at Rangers this season not believing that is deluded. But it's not that he's telling Graham Murray, this is the team I want picked. That's not happening. 100% that's not happening. But it's easier for Graham Murray in the situation he's in, let's be honest, on human level, having to deal, this is not champ manager, you don't just, make a decision on and click the name in the screen. It's a lot easier for him to leave out a Carlos Pena than it is for him to leave out Kenny Miller, with all the attention that brings.
Aye, undroppable is right. I think, let me take you back, David, to we were thinking about what Miller's role would be, having secured an extra year's contract, and it was either going to be that he was going to play an hour, or he would come on as that impact substitute for the last half hour in a game. Not that he was going to play 90 minutes, and either one or two things has happened, and that free role that he appears to be assuming, he's either doing it himself or he's being told by the manager that he can play that role. So I think either way that's a problem, because I'd like to see him play a far more orthodox striking position, for the simple reason that he has got the energy in the legs, and he's decent at holding the ball up when he tries to do it and bring other players in. He might pass the ball back a little bit too far, but he looks, when he gets the ball, to bring other players into play and then peel off that defender to make a space behind them. So I'd like to see him doing far, far more of that. And one of the major criticisms I've got the way we've played, even though our goal difference is significantly better than it was last season, is that for the amount of possession we have, we're not creating enough chances. And I think the fact that we could only beat Ross County 2-1 on Saturday, I think, is a reasonably good illustration of that, on the back of two reasonably good performances, I have to say, to Pittodrie and against Aberdeen.
I'd like
to see us do far more than that. Sorry, I was going to say that he played really well in Tynecastle, and I thought, good, he's got his mojo back and he's going to produce. But I agree, on form, he wouldn't have played half the games that he's played already this season. Certainly that's the case for Miller. For Pena, for me, it's like we're playing a man short. My basic requirement for a player playing the last third of the pitch, whether it be midfield, or as a number 10 or whatever, is that when he gets the ball, he's got it under control and he's got a decent first touch. And Peña's first touch too often for me looks like a pass. He doesn't look like he's got that composure to be comfortable in the ball to bring other players in, and that's a basic requirement of playing in midfield. And you look at all the other players you look at Jack, you look at Dorrans, you look at Holt, they can all do that. And I think,
but they can't. But Stephen, they can't drift into the box and score the goals he does. That's just a fact. It's been proven.
No, none of those three. Absolutely, you're absolutely right. He has got that X factor and far more dangerous in the box than any of those three. I'd agree with that. Absolutely. So that's a real paradox for the manager about how to resolve that, because
exactly. But can we afford to write off a guy who can do that when we don't have others who can?
Yeah, middle to front's a problem for us, and if we've got Windass and Peña and Candeias, that's our creative element, and there are flaws with all three of them. I think Candeias, as I like him a lot. I think his crossing's improved significantly. I think the ball, as you said, for the goal on Saturday, excellent. I like him a lot, but we don't have that incisive cutting edge that other decent teams have, and I think that's a major weakness in this team. And Miller doesn't bring any of that, incidentally. If he's going to drop in there, then he should be looking to be that creative edge, and isn't. So I think that's another reason why you ought to play far more as as an orthodox 9 or 10. But that's just a personal opinion.
No, I can understand. Listen, it's the old if only you could have a guy with Peña's ability to get in the end of things with Miller's work rate. Then they wouldn't be at Ibrox. They wouldn't be in Scotland, would they? Unfortunately, and that's the problem. We've got composite bits of a good attack, and it's about trying to place them together to maximise the danger. And unfortunately, but you're right. I mean, there are times with Peña you're like, oh, for Christ's sake, why didn't you trap the ball? But then, as I say, there is that ability to ghost in, to arrive when people aren't expecting them, to get into the spaces. And I mean, we are a side that's very good at getting to the edge of the box, firing a cross in that gets knocked away. I mean, we do that an awful lot. And he, I think, is someone who can help turn a percentage, not all, but a percentage of those into goals. But you are going to have to accept, you're right, that he is also a guy that link-up play isn't good, isn't particularly a guy that stamps his authority on a match. But I just keep coming back to the fact we invested $2 million in him, and we're not going to get that back if we write him off as a dud. So there's that aspect of it. We don't have anyone who can do what he does, whereas we do have willing runners that aren't scoring goals, and I just think you then need to go and to be fair to Graham Murray, he has done that, and he worked it out with the Aberdeen matches, and I think it'll be similar when we go to play Hibs on Wednesday, which we'll come to towards the end. Now, before we move on, actually, just speaking of Hibs, now Stephen, you're a very politically active gentleman, and those who've listened to you on the show before might have known that. Now, you're also very left wing. I mean, I consider myself quite left wing, but you're fucking poof. You're way out the fringe compared to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So
I'm slightly left of centre. Yes.
You're a man of the left. Yeah, I think it's fair to say, right? Man of the left. Fidel Castro tattoo. That's not a joke. He does have a Fidel Castro tattoo.
I've actually got a Che Guevara tattoo, but never mind.
It's a fucking same thing. Do you know what I mean? Some fucking loony foreign guy, that's shite, you know what I mean? So, basically, so long as imagine if Mark had taken that approach. God knows what he'd ended up with. But
he ended up with my initials on his forearm somewhere anyway, that's for sure.
Very probably, yeah. But you, as I say, I'm no great fan of anything particularly right wing, and certainly not a fan of the incumbent US president. But would it occur to you to make up a banner and take it to the Hibs Rangers match on Wednesday, as it appeared to appeal to a number of Celtic supporters to do the same for their match at the weekend?
I don't think it would have appealed or crossed my mind to do that football match anyway, but we are talking about people who are posturing, like what I'd call posturing student leftists. You're effectively talking about people who've read a few Marxist textbooks, quite like the general ideas that are there, and thought, let's have some of that, but I haven't got the maturity to kind of root that in the real world. So regardless of what your views on Trump or Palestine are, my question would be, how is it possible for a set of fans to make an overtly political display like that, and for the police and for the football authorities not to take action against it, because that is a club that has been fined, 14 times by UEFA in the last 6 or 7 years, and 2/3 of those fines have been for, in inverted commas, political gestures.
Yeah.
So if it's illegal at European level and European football is governed by UEFA, then I'm wondering why the SFA thinks that it's acceptable, for example, for those overtly political displays to be. It just kind of goes to the idea, David, leaving the side aside, my views in Israel-Palestine and my views on Donald Trump, which I think people can guess at both of them. It's about, how is that support untouchable? How are they allowed to do that repeatedly? To invade, to go onto playing surfaces, to throw lighters at players, to throw mobile phones at players, those kind of display, the displays of the two hanging effigies that we had when they played earlier on, one a Rangers fan and another one, somebody wearing a sash, a bowler hat, that kind of behaviour. How is that just allowed to go on week after week, facilitated by Celtic Football Club, and nobody, literally nobody in the mainstream Scottish media that I can see raises any questions about it?
I think it illustrated that in Scotland in 2017 that there is a sort of accepted doctrine of how you should think and how it's okay to think, and your behaviour is based on whether or not you fit into that. So, for example, you can go and listen, I think people can guess my views on Donald Trump, right? I mean, I think the guy's an absolute... I won't go in it because it's really of no relevance to people, but if you were to go, if you or I were to put up a banner that said "fuck Sturgeon," we would get told to take the banner down at the minimum. And
at best, huckled away in a van, more likely. But yeah.
But at best, we'd have the banner removed. That is a fact. That's just a fact. Yeah. If we were to put the head of a major religion on that banner and put "fuck," then we would we would face jail time. That's a fact, right? So it appears to me to be, well, we all think Trump's an idiot, so that's all right. Well, it's like, well, that's not all right. You either can do this or you can't, and you either believe in freedom of speech or you don't. Whereas in Scotland, I think it's pretty clear that there's a belief in freedom of speech if you think the right way and you hate the right people, and if you don't, then there's not that same courtesy extended. And then you get into a situation where you have a 2-tier level of freedom of speech. And I think that is what we have. Now, I would agree, incidentally, that a football match is not the place to have "fuck the head of a major religion" on a banner. And I would agree it's not a place to have "fuck Sturgeon" on a banner. But I'd also say it's probably not a place to have "fuck Trump." And the fact that it's a rather pointless, attention-seeking protest from a group who are absolutely high on their own self-importance, and I think increasingly prove week on week that they're not so much football fans as a politics group who use a football club as a place to get attention, as a sort of forum, if you like, to get eyes on them. And like I said, I found it very interesting, and to me it just goes back to, we've spoken a lot about what Stuart Waiton, Dr. Stuart Waiton from Dundee University says, which is that in Scotland we have a sneering middle class who look down on working class people unless they think the way we're supposed to, unless we think the right way. And you see that at all levels, and this is another example of that.
Yeah, I mean, not so much the Invincibles as the Untouchables, David, and I mean that in the respect that it's a group of supporters that appear to behave whichever way they want with absolute impunity, and it's pretty... you're right, it's groupthink. As I sit kind of looking at Scotland as a Scot, observing it from kind of, the heartland of Middle England, well, it's really interesting. Now, we had this a saying a few years ago, one Scotland, many cultures. Well, many cultures apart from one, because it strikes me, and I'm by no means a royalist, but if you are a royalist or a unionist, or you support the Union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, then that's not a view that's acceptable in mainstream opinion, regardless of the fact that unionism was endorsed clearly by a very substantial majority when there was a referendum held about Scottish nationalism. And that's kind of opened, that's what's opened the bottle for this, Those people who are looking to break United Kingdom up, who have Irish Republican leanings, are clearly on the nationalist bandwagon for that reason. It's really obvious, and again, it's not discussed, and I don't hear it articulated or explained. That people were probably on a political kick here that we're going to get abuse for discussing politics in the pod, but I'm trying to kind of confine it to where it leaves and why Rangers fans are treated as second-class citizens in their own country. We're the baddies, we're the pantomime villain. That's still the case. Has been the case for at least the last decade.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just my favourite one though is the wonderful at Kerrydale Fail account on Twitter, which I always urge people to go and check out, where they go to the kind of Celtic message boards and lift the best quotes. And my favourite one was looking forward to seeing the White House's response and to this. It brought it into the mainstream, and you're like, yeah, you're right, because no one in the mainstream had discussed this whole Israel-Palestine thing. That was the first I'd heard that was actually an issue. I hadn't.
Yeah. Thanks, lads. Thanks, boys.
Thanks, because it's good to know that this is now being discussed at a high level, and it is that sort of childish, as you say, attempts to play at politics, and it's embarrassing, and there's no place for it in Scottish football except when it's one club.
People, David, if we were talking about people who are capable of embarrassment, but these are people who are capable of holding contradictory views. So, for example, calling somebody a Hun isn't sectarian, and supporting an organisation that killed Protestants isn't sectarian, that's political. But then you're a bigot because you sing songs about the Pope. That's the kind of people we're dealing with. They're not capable of thinking in a logical, sensible, upright manner.
Or also, you don't sing songs about the Pope, but your support used to. So therefore, the fact that you support that team, you're automatically a bigot, and you're like, no, hang on a minute here, you're reaching there. You're reaching there, because you don't hear songs about the Pope at Ibrox. I was at Ibrox on Saturday. The Pope was not referred to once, right? Thankfully, it's something.
Can I just say this? I like the current incumbent. I like Francis. He's a man after my own heart.
Okay. We'll
just a bit of a curveball there.
We'll move on. Rangers have appointed a new director, Barry Scott, not the Sillet Band guy, disappointingly, but Barry Scott, name you might remember, is he was one of the people in January 2016 who contributed to the $6.5 million, which was instrumental in the removal of Mike Ashley. So you may remember him from there, and he's now formally joined the board. Stephen, he's Hong Kong-based businessman, Rangers fan lifelong, clearly has worked with the board in the past, and clearly has put money in before. So good news. Is it something we need? Maybe I think after the last couple of weeks the board has had, and we're just about to discuss the managerial situation, but fresh blood, probably at an opportune time, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think it can be a bad thing, because I think the last 5 to 6 weeks has been, not to put too fine a point on it, and I apologise for swearing, it's a clusterfuck. We have had a display of unbelievable incompetence, actually, David. It's been really disappointing for me, and I know most Rangers fans, I think, are behind the board and are extremely grateful for having saved the football club, for having gotten rid of Green and Ashley and cleared the board out of them. But effectively, I think what's happened over the last month and a half in terms of the manager, and particularly, I have to say, in terms of the communications around that and what hasn't been said, and Jim Trainor's role in all of this, I think that's been an absolute shambles, and an avoidable one as well. That's I think my main irritation. And if I sound a bit ranty, I apologise, but I think if you do anything in life and you're good at it and somebody's better than you, you just put your hands up and say fair enough. If you're in a competition with somebody else and they're better than you go fine. What you need to do is make sure that you don't make mistakes that are avoidable, and you put the pressure on your opponent. And all we have done in the last month and a half is make avoidable mistakes. What hasn't been said, conducting business in secrecy rather than being open about what we're actually doing, has just left nature abhors a vacuum. So the media, in an unhelpful ways, attempted to fill that. Rangers fans have been left scrambling about going, what's happening at the football club? It's been an absolute shambles.
The story has broken this week, which all Rangers fans knew about last week, and we're discussing at the match on Saturday. But the story is broken that Derek McInnes, Rangers and Aberdeen had agreed on a compensation deal. They'd agreed how it was all going to be handled. Derek McInnes had been approached, had agreed to take the job. There are rumours going about, and it's 2 and 2 equal 5 job of, it was his assistant. His assistant didn't want to come. It wasn't that. He was going to come. Everything was set up, and in fact it got to a stage where Derek McInnes was discussing with Graham Murray who would replace Ryan Jack on Saturday. This was on the Wednesday, and Rangers believed that Derek McInnes was going to be their manager right up to the minute that he wasn't. And that was because they found out from a journalist phoning saying there is a statement on Aberdeen's website with quotes from Derek McInnes saying he's staying at Aberdeen, and that was why Rangers issued that disastrous statement. And I think that's the point that needs mentioned, that you can, it's not a case of somebody's in the wrong so the other party must be in the right. They can all have acted badly. In Derek McInnes' case, he had told Rangers that he was taking the job. This was a fact. This is what happened. And then he changed his mind at the 11th hour, which is exactly what happened with Sunderland. Now, Derek McInnes may have his reasons for both, and one of the things that is being mentioned is Rangers, might be a bit of a, as you say, clown car of a club at the moment, and Sunderland certainly from the outside appear to be a clown car of a club. But why then do you accept the job after talks? If that's the case, if you think no, actually this is, then you don't take the job. You say thanks, I've listened, but having looked under the bonnet, I'm not interested. You don't take it and then go, actually no, I'm not going to do it. And for that to happen twice, that's a pattern, right? That's, there are questions about Derek McInnes' temperament. There are questions about Derek McInnes' belief in himself, and there are questions about what he expects. A man with Derek McInnes' record does not get the Rangers job if everything's going swimmingly, right? That's a fact. For me, what you do is you back yourself to be good enough, to succeed enough, to have the capital to get the changes that you want. That's what you do. That you go into a club and you think, I will win the fans over to a degree that I can then get what I want and start to run it, and you have a long-term plan. But Derek McInnes didn't feel up to that, and that's fine. We didn't need to issue a classless statement about it. No. There was no need for that, as let down as I'm sure they felt. Now, the problem for the Rangers board is that they feel a bit sorry for themselves here, because they're like, well, he'd said he was coming and then he didn't. And they're right, he let them down. That's fine, okay. That's fine if that happened the Thursday, Friday after Pedro went. But you took 6 weeks, and you took 6 weeks to pick Derek McInnes. So that's why you're getting shit. And that's kind of why you deserve to. And the fact is that Rangers are going to, if Graham Murray's in charge on the last day of the year, Rangers will have spent over 3 months in this calendar year without a permanent manager during the playing time of this calendar year. And that's why the fans are going, that's a clusterfuck. And it is. And you can't deny that. And unfortunately, while they may legitimately have a point about the way McInnes conducted himself, we still have a legitimate point about the way they conducted themselves and continue to.
I mean, I was sat down considering what had happened, and I thought, what are the facts that the commonly held established events that we know about? So the facts last week, Rangers asked for permission to speak to McInnes. Might have been because of the double header to get it out of the way, 2 games against Aberdeen, but that permission was refused by his employer. So there are 3 things that can then happen. McInnes has to resign, he stays at Aberdeen, or there's some illegal action, i.e. we tap him up, or we have a backdoor conversation in which may breach league and SFA rules. And we've ended up in option 2 where he's staying, and the reasons for that will come out, I guess, in the wash some point.
Rangers had permission to talk to him. That's one thing. Rangers did have permission to talk to him. Yeah.
So the possible scenarios, right, that McInnes didn't fancy it or was afraid, I'd be very, very surprised if that's the case. He's a lifelong Blue Nose, his family's in Renfrew. I'd be stunned. He'd be getting a bigger budget, even if it wasn't going to be the budget that he might have had in mind. It would have been more money would have gotten at Aberdeen. He'd have had a bigger transfer kitty, and he would have got more. His salary would have been greater. It's the greatest job in Scottish football. Why wouldn't he want it? But I think the worrying aspect to this, David, is the possibility, and of course, again, we're never going to know this, is if he's looked under the bonnet, i.e. looked at the way the club is being run, the finances and what have you, and thought, no, this is going to be a disaster. Well, that's going to be the same for any manager coming in. So that's going to
Stephen,
be.
He's not.
So that's a challenge for us.
But Stephen, he's not looked under the bonnet and said no. He's looked under the bonnet and said yes, and then said no, and that's exactly what he did at Sunderland as well. So I do believe that for whatever reason, Derek McInnes felt he's not up to the job, or he couldn't do the job, or whatever. And I do believe there is an element with a guy that he is comfortable at Aberdeen. He knows now he is virtually unsackable. He would need to go some for Stuart Milne to sack him, and he knows that. And I'm not sure what he wants. You know, if he thinks he's going to be, you know, hanging on for a Premiership job with a club where everything's fantastic and rosy, that doesn't happen. And anybody that goes to Premiership now's, you know, 4 games off the sack. I think, you know, short of Pep Guardiola, everybody's kind of looking over their shoulder a bit. So I just don't understand why Chris Coleman, who was quite sought after, no matter what you think of Chris Coleman, he was quite sought after. Why does he look under that bonnet at Sunderland, not take the job?
Yeah, well, he did take it, didn't he? So
exactly.
I don't buy into the idea, David, that as a jumping off point for a job in the English Premiership or a decent job in the Championship, and bear in mind McInnes has managed in Bristol already.
Badly.
Yes, yeah. Pittodrie's a better place than Ibrox to do that. I don't believe that. I think the reverse is the case. I'd be very, very surprised. I mean, we're not going to know until the guy tells us himself, because there's a whole load of people filling in the blanks here, and we've heard very, very little from McInnes himself about why he didn't take a job. And it could be dynamite. It could be.
Well, he says the only thing that he said
could be just a very, very personal.
The only thing that he said is that he feels that it would have damaged his legendary status at Aberdeen, and I must admit, I don't know if that's shared by the Aberdeen fans, that belief. And secondly, that Rangers didn't make him feel wanted enough because he took 6 weeks. Now, the 6 weeks thing is legitimate. Right, it's like, no, wait a minute here. You had 6 weeks to come and get me. You didn't get me. You could have got me in March. You didn't get me. You got this Pedro Caixinha fella. No, but why do you do that after you've said yes? Surely that's a thing that you know going into the talks. That's not something that happens halfway through. You knew that already. They've taken 6 weeks to get to you. So why do you not say, no, you took 6 weeks to get to me, or no, you don't want me enough? When they say, do you want the job after you've been through the talks, you've looked under the bonnet, as we keep saying, you've seen the books, you know the plans, and after all that, if at that point he says no, then fair enough, right? That's the board's fault, and we can all go, it's chaos on the board, and blah blah. The fact that he's said yes, and then the next day has said no, he didn't say no, he just went back to Aberdeen and said, I'm staying, he didn't, and that's how it came out. It doesn't mean, incidentally, the fact that Derek McInnes, for whatever reason, now appears to lift his skirt to passers-by and then get upset when they come out with their cock in their hand. The fact is that this is twice that it's happened, so there is, evidence to suggest that here is a guy who's comfortable in his world, who likes being a big fish in a small pond, and on some level doubts his ability to recreate the same thing at a bigger club, which both Sunderland and Rangers are. Now, that doesn't mean, all of that being true, and I believe that is the case here, all of that being true doesn't mean the Rangers board haven't fucked this up, haven't, or are not run in a dysfunctional fashion, because they clearly are, right? The fact that the chief executive, or the managing director, I believe is his title, has to run every major decision past the chairman, who lives thousands of miles away, and it takes extra time and additional time. The club does not run, I think, as smoothly as it should, but I do believe that there are faults on both sides in this instance. And for me, like I say, you're offered the Rangers job, you're Derek McInnes, you've got Derek McInnes' track record, right? The Rangers job comes up, the club aren't being run by the spivs. Spivs, I get it, right? They're maybe being run by people whose competence isn't great, and they're going to cause you a headache from time to time. You know that. They're going to get right in your tits. However, you take the job and you make sure that you deliver on your end enough that you get the cachet from the supporters to be able to say, I'm not happy about X, I'm not happy about Y, and you need to fix it because I'm not happy about it. That's how you go about it. I think he bottled it. I really do. I genuinely believe that he bottled it, and I know that the feeling from inside Ibrox is that he bottled it by sensible people. People who tell you, yeah, you know, can do this or can do that, and it would improve things, but he doesn't. You know, these are guys who aren't blinkered, and they think he bottled it. And I know that Sunderland, in particular, feel that he bottled it and feel that he let them down and led them down the garden path. Because you know, we spoke to journalists down there about, because obviously with the Bain thing and then this McInnes thing, you know, they've been in contact, and I don't know, I think he's developing a reputation as a serial bottler, because it's not like when people have approached him he said, no, I am happy at Aberdeen. This is twice now where he's gone into significantly lengthy talks and told the clubs on each occasion, yes, I am coming. So I don't know. Like I say, I think I think you can still be of the opinion that, you know, he ran home to change his tampon and get a cuddle off Stuart Milne and still believe that Rangers are not run as professionally as we should be. I think that those are not thoughts. If you like, I think that those are concomitant thoughts. Yeah.
Well, if that is the case, David, and it might be, but if it is the case, then that he is already at the zenith of his managerial career, because he's achieved as much as he's ever going to achieve at Aberdeen. He's had the last 5 seasons with Rangers effectively fighting with both arms tied behind their back, and now one arm tied behind her back.
And Hibs and Dundee United and Hearts.
It's only going to improve.
Everybody was hamstrung in that period. Hibs, Dundee United, Hearts, Rangers were all out of the picture for that period. Let's be honest. I don't think that he's at the zenith of his career. I think he's peaked. And I think that history will record that.
Absolutely. That's as high as it's going to get. And there's an argument that says Aberdeen are now the 4th best team in Scotland, because Hibs look to be, on the basis of how they've performed this season, they're getting 17,000 crowds at Easter Road now. They are going to be the 3rd club in Scotland now, and that'll put Aberdeen in 4th. So and the other thing is, he's never going to manage at Rangers or anywhere else significant again if that's the case. And I'm really disappointed, I think, from a personal point of view. I mean, he wasn't the manager I wanted, but I'm thinking that what's his career path going to be now? Because he is a Blue. We know, there's no doubt about it. Blue nose, born and bred, played for the club for, what was it, I think? It was about 5 seasons, I think he was at Ibrox.
Yeah.
It, did really well for us. And that should be his dream job. And it should be any Rangers fan's dream job. Whether if you're a player to play, or if you're a manager to manage there, absolutely. And we know that it wasn't about his deputy, because bluntly, David, it's the same position as, let's say, player like Scott Brown or Kenny Dalglish or David Provan or Alan McInally, or a big host of so-called Rangers men who ended up playing for Celtic. If he was willing to come to Rangers, then he's not much of a Tim, is he? He's not a die-hard Celtic man. Our boy Doherty, that much if he's prepared to come and work at Rangers. So I don't think there's very much in that. And the other one I have heard is because the fans didn't fancy him. Well, let's be honest here. Fan opinion is the least important part of an equation in modern football. There's sponsorship, there's television rights, there's keep the players happy, keep management happy, all the rest of it. Fans are always at the bottom of the list. That's part of the problem with modern football. So our view wouldn't have counted, and it wasn't as if there was a huge kind of 30, thousands and thousands of people desperate not to have him. It was kind of lukewarm, but that's a reflection about the fact that the club still hasn't got on an even keel, and we haven't put ourselves in a position where we can start to challenge for the title again. That's the key to it.
You back yourself. That's, for me, that's what Absolutely. I want to manage. You back yourself. They don't fancy me, I'll fucking show them, right? They took 6 weeks to get, I'll fucking show them. That's the type of manager I want. And the other thing about it is as you said there, he's done well, but at a time when traditional powers in Scotland were not what they should be, and in fact still aren't, and are all at various stages of what you would consider their recovery. Rangers, Hibs, Hearts, Dundee United, right, are all, for various reasons, during this period have not been what they should be. Now, for Derek McInnes to think that the fans don't fancy me and the chairman or the club didn't fancy me enough, I don't see his record, 1 League Cup and 2nd place finishes during that period. I don't see his record as being impressive enough for him to get upset about people not fancying him. And to me, it shows you a level of delusion, which is obviously because, football, we've talked about the Okinawa bubble on here before. Footballers and football managers can be cosseted, they can live in the wee bubble that they create from themselves, and that's great, that's fine. But I believe that up there in Aberdeen with a compliant press, it's a one club city, he's got a compliant press, he's got a chairman who obviously likes him both, as a manager and individually. I think he's got an unrealistic idea of how good he is. I think he's got an unrealistic idea of how good his achievements are, and the fact that he does, as mentioned, consider himself a legend at Aberdeen, which, I'm sure Aberdeen fans will tell us one way or another, but I'm damn sure they don't consider him one. And I don't get how he can have the record he has and expect to be treated at the level he clearly expects to be treated. That's my take on it. And for me, the Rangers board handled this abysmally. They continue to handle it badly. But Derek McInnes is a bottle merchant, and I think that that's been proven. And I think in the next few years he'll regret his decision. I think that Aberdeen will regret his decision, because I think that they were quite excited about getting the money they were going to get, and they'd already lined up their next manager, which is going to be the guy from St Mirren, Jack Ross. So I just feel that in the end he's had a challenge put in front of him and he's felt he didn't want to do it, and that's cool, that's his right, that's entirely up to him, and he's decided to do that, but time will tell. Let's move on then, Stephen. We have a big game on Wednesday night against Hibs. Hibs coming off the back of a very credible 2-each draw against Celtic, another one. Hibs have had a bit like us, have had their fair share of stupid results this season, and have shown also on certain days that they're more than capable of it. Beat us 3-2 earlier in the season with the assistance of John Beaton, but Hibs are a good side. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They've got good players. Yes, Neil Lennon is their manager, but I don't have a problem particularly with Hibs, because Hibs try to beat everybody equally. They're not going to lie down when they play Celtic. They've shown that. No. And we're going to go there and get a torrid time. Their fans are going to give us abuse, but that's fine. That's it. So long as they don't attack our players, that's all I'm asking for them. Mm-hmm. Now, strangely, I think we play better away from home than we do at home, and I think we also play better against sides who'll give us a bit of room. Now they're going to try and batter us in the opening 20. I think it's key, if we survive that opening 20 and then can start to play, I would revert back to the diamond. If McCrory's fit, I would revert back to the diamond. I would put Barjonas into midfield, and I've got no worries about him going in place of Ryan Jack, and I would stick to the diamond. I would retain Pena, I would put Miller on the bench, and I would put Morelos up front with Windass. Now I don't think that'll happen, but that's what I'd be going for, and I do believe, although it's going to be very difficult and they will be bang up for it, and if we're not, we'll get swept away. We won't even just lose them, we'll get beaten, I think, quite badly. It could be quite embarrassing if we're not up for it, because they will be. But I do fancy us to maybe go there, and wouldn't surprise me if we were to win to win that match 2-1.
Yeah, I think, and I'm sick of saying it and the sound of my own voice saying it, but the first goal in this game is absolutely essential, because if we get it, then I'd fancy us to go on and win that game, and if they do, then we could find ourselves in difficulty, because they are a decent outfit. McGear, Stokes, McGinn, they're decent players. They're not world beaters, but they're more than capable of and competent enough to play against this current Rangers team. So I guess, David, my starting expectation is that we'll be more or less the same team that we played on Saturday, with more or less the same formation. I can't see them making any major changes to that. If everybody plays to form, then we're more than capable of beating them. If we can go to Pittodrie and get a result comfortably, playing with 10 men for 25-30 minutes, then I'd fancy us to go to Easter Road. Pittodrie's a far harder place, in my view, to go and get a result than Easter Road is. There's also a little bit of edge in terms of, this might be the first visit we've come since their fans behaved disgracefully, mob-handed and got away with kind of massa. And there we go, talking about differential treatment again of fans, invading a pitch, which is completely, every single person on there completely an illegal act, and how many of them got arrested for it. So there's going to be a bit of an edge to it. Very important that it's refereed properly, competently. John Beaton's, John Beaton's handling it. I think one of the worst examples I think I've ever seen of any referee, and how Anthony Stokes was on that pitch at the end, before he walked off under his own volition. I'm absolutely stunned to think that how that happened. But if we get a fair shake, then we can, and we're comfortably able to get a result there if we play anything like the thing.
I didn't know if I'd fancy us in a game where we had to battle up until the Aberdeen matches, because I don't think that we had shown any great capability to do so, and it would have worried me. I would have fancied before those two matches, I would have thought Hibs will just be much more up for it. They'll come out, they'll play much more aggressively, they'll have the crowd whipping them into a frenzy, and our boys will not be able to handle that. They'll totally McInnes it, and they'll just shit themselves. And I don't think that now, because I've seen that Rangers players, I know Rangers fans can do it, but I think that Rangers players have shown actually they do have that in their locker. The question is whether they can produce it again, or whether they will produce it again. But I now believe that they can do in those circumstances. They need to remember that against Hibs, when they had 11 men on the park, they were looking very good for long spells of that. But the Hibs are a good side. They will have times when they're battering down and looking like scoring, and we need to stand firm up to that. But if we can do that, and if we can, again, it comes down to things like second ball, win your individual battle. We need to improve dramatically across the back line. If our back line plays the way it did on Saturday, we will lose, and we will lose heavily, and that's not up for debate, because a guy like Stokes will take advantage in a way that Ross County's players just couldn't. And incidentally, by the way, Ross County have to be the shall we say, pie-friendliest team that I've seen in the SPFL. A big bunch of lads. Great bunch of lads, I'm sure, but a big bunch of lads.
Not flattering and white and tight, is it? You know, the way they were looking at. Listen, if Rangers players can't get up for this game, then they should chuck it, bluntly. And what we need, if we're going to win, there's two or three things. We need Alves and Wilson, who I'm guessing will be a centre halves to boss it, and Bruno Alves is more than capable of doing it. This is the sort of game where I'd expect him to pitch in as a leader and on the pitch, and to lead by example. I think that's what I'm looking for. You know, he's a very good player, and he needs to show it. We need Tavernier and John. I think that was, as I said before, the least effective I've seen them, so I think we need them.
I have to pull you up because a guy said he was going to stab me if I didn't. He said your pronunciation of Tavernier drives him nuts.
Okay.
It's
Tavernier.
It's Tavernier.
Tavernier, it's a French word.
No, you're right, and I agree. That's how it should be pronounced, but he pronounces it Tavernier. James Tavernier. That's how he pronounces it. So.
Oh, okay. All right then. Well, we can be dragged down to that level if everybody's happy with that. Lowest common denominator, I guess, works for the kind of people that complain about pronunciation. But never mind.
Well, they complain about pronunciation when it's wrong, which you are. I mean, I could pronounce your name as Stephen, and I don't. Right, even though your name is spelled, let's be honest, in a way that could only be described as, a bit Timish.
I'm proud to have it there, mate. I'm absolutely proud to wear it. And
I'd have changed it, I must admit. I'd have gone with a V if I were you. But hey, I don't want to judge.
But what I'm going for when I get my name changed by deed poll is O Smith. So just so there's no doubt about it anyway.
Yes.
But we do series.
Deep undercover.
Aye, well, okay, but if McCrory plays to form, then that takes care of itself.
How big a miss would he be, Stephen?
Huge.
Yeah, he would, wouldn't he?
I think, particularly with Jack missing, I think because the only other person to play that role, if you're gonna have, well, you either you bring Bates in and you play Wilson or Alves there. Or you bring Cardoso back, but you work out from that combination. I don't think the manager's got the courage to put Barjonas there. So and that'll probably wind your listener up by me, pronouncing his name that way.
Yeah.
But so we have some positional challenges there.
No, we do. But
if we play form, and it's particularly important that we get the two fullbacks playing really well.
Yeah, I agree. They can't. It was a weird day on Saturday, in that we know they've got defensive frailties, but didn't contribute in the attacking sense in the way that we're used to, and that I found very, very disappointing. But they've got a chance to rectify it. If we get this win, then we are on a roll. However, like I say, it's not going to be easy, and if we get a win, any type of performance, any type of result, it'll be a good one, and it won't be. We won't underplay it on here, that's for sure, and I don't think the Rangers support would. So that's pretty much it from us this week. All that I would like to do then is to tell you, with Christmas approaching, it's 2 weeks today as we record, what a great present it would be if you sent your loved one Rangers fan to Narsa next year, where they can see me doing a live pod. The North American Rangers Supporters Association, they have their annual meeting every year at the different places. Next year it's in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm there as a convention partner, and it's a wonderful experience for Rangers supporters. They'll meet ex-players, they'll meet officials, there's loads of stuff about Rangers, symposiums and whatnot, and a live pod. So why not consider that and go and have a look on their website. Just type Narsa into your Google machine and it'll pop up. I'd like to thank our executive producers in London, Mr. Mike Lee and Mr. Paul Myers, and to thank my guest today, Mr. Stephen Smith.
Thanks, David. It's a pleasure as always, and enjoy the run-up to the festive season. And let's hope we can put ourselves in a position that when we go to the Glitter Arena, that we are, we can potentially put this league race on a different footing.
Fingers, thumbs, and like a Celtic supporter, eyes crossed. The only thing to tell you is, if you like this show, and I sincerely hope you do, and if you're listening to it, you can get us every day if you go to patreon.com. Patreon.com is a place where we have our subscription service, and there are tons and tons of new shows on there. There's a daily update where you get all the news and latest rumours to do with Ibrox, but more importantly, there are brand new shows which are going down really well. I've got to say, the feedback has been fantastic, and over 1,400 people have already signed up. It's very cheap. It's either $1.99 or $3.99 per month, and for that you'll get an additional, well, I'd said sort of 20 to 25 hours of content per month. You're going to get even more than that. We started off last week with 2 cracking shows. One, our new debate show, head-to-head debate show on whether or not Kenny Miller is a Rangers legend. Stephen, your tuppence worth?
I don't think he's remotely in the same class as being a Rangers legend, for a whole variety of reasons. Rangers legends are, Jimmy Baxter, John Gregg, Richard Gough, players like that, not Kenny Miller. Well,
there'll be an official vote next week, or Wednesday of this week, and the voting is hot at the moment. I'd say leaning towards him not being a legend, but the boys did well in the debate. And also our show, The Advocate Years, where we break down chronologically and in great detail. We don't do a whole season in an hour kind of thing. We're breaking it down almost month by month, and the first episode of that got rave reviews, and we're really looking forward to the second one dropping this week. And there'll be loads of new stuff, Q&As, there's going to be phone-ins, we're going to do all sorts of things on there, and for the money we're charging, it works out, I believe somebody pointed out to me that it works out around about 3p a show, so I don't feel I'm ripping you off. I'm going to be honest there, I think it's worth it, but please go along, Patreon, patreon.com/heart and hand, and join the community there, because it's already jumped up. There's loads of bears, they're chatting away to each other, and it's just a great place to be. So please come along, sign up for it, and all the money goes to me, and I'm going, but I'm going to spend it and thus boost the economy. So in many ways, it's going to help in the UK's financial recovery. So you're actually being patriotic if you sign up to that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That's capitalism, mate. If we can't change it, comrade, we might as well work it.
Ride the tiger.
That's it, absolutely. Okay, folks, thank you very much for listening. My name's David Edgar, and I'll talk to you again on Thursday. Cheers, bye.